Parkour and zombies, the perfect combination to become one of the best zombie game series. I've played through all the Dying Light games to understand why so many people loved it, how it became a new benchmark for zombie games, and to choose the best entry in this wonderful series. Write your favorite entry in the comments and we'll get started. So, the first Dying Light game was released in January 2015 and immediately made a name for itself. The story in Dying Light begins with the city of Haran, a once vibrant metropolis that has now been transformed into one vast quarantine zone. The reason is simple: an unknown virus is turning people into zombies. The city is cut off from the rest of the world, the military maintains the perimeter, and those lucky enough not to be infected survive inside. The protagonist is Kyle Crane, an operative for the Global Relief Enforcement. He is given the task of infiltrating Haran and finding documents that could influence the future of the virus. These papers are in the possession of a man named Kadir Rice Suleiman, a former politician who has become the leader of the city's gangs. But the mission goes awry within the first few minutes. Crane is bitten by zombies. He is rescued by a group of survivors and ends up in the so-called Tower, a community where people try to survive together. It is here that he meets characters who will be important to the entire story. Brecken, the leader of the Tower, a man with good intentions but full of self-doubt. Jade Aldemir, an experienced survivor who becomes Crane's main ally. Rahim, Jade's younger brother, a hot-blooded and reckless man eager to prove his mettle. The plot gradually unfolds into a dilemma. Crane is torn between his duty to the organization that sent him and his personal attachment to the people he meets. The situation is complicated by the fact that the infection within him is progressing, and his life depends on antizin, a drug that can slow the virus but not cure it completely. The main conflict revolves around the Tower's struggle against Rice's bandits. Rice controls the antizin supply and uses it to subjugate people. Crane is sent as a liaison, but he finds himself drawn into a much deeper story: the virus, the conspiracy, the brutal trials, and the final confrontation with Rice. The most surprising part of the plot isn't so much Crane's mission as the atmosphere of the city itself. Haran feels like a living organism. The city is designed in such a way that every street, every rooftop becomes an arena for parkour and survival. You don't just complete tasks, you're immersed in a world where you feel like part of the besieged city. For the first time in zombie games, Dying Light gave players a tool that transformed the entire experience: parkour. You climb rooftops, leap over balconies, use walls and pipes to escape the zombies. For the first time, the zombie apocalypse became not only about battles, but also about constant movement. This mechanic set the game apart from its competitors so much that it's still called the series' signature feature. We'd seen something similar in Mirror's Edge before, but there it was more about athleticism and style. Here, parkour became your salvation. The day divided by night system is also worth mentioning. During the day, Haran is relatively safe. Zombies are slow and easy to outrun. You can explore, gather resources, and complete missions. But at night, everything changes. Volatiles come out to hunt monsters that run faster than Crane, kill in a couple of hits, and can hear every sound. The gameplay becomes a horror experience. You try to avoid being seen, hide, and run to safe zones. This mechanic created a unique balance. During the day, the player feels like a predator, and at night, like a prey. Combat in Dying Light is designed in the spirit of close quarters action. Melee weapons are the core of the game. Crowbars, bats, machetes, hammers, katanas, the ability to modify weapons, electricity, fire, poison. Each weapon breaks over time, forcing you to constantly search for new options. Firearms are present, but they don't appear immediately and are used more as a rare tool than a primary means of combat. To understand the power of Dying Light, it's worth considering its competitors. Dead Island Techland's previous game also had zombies and weapon crafting, but the world was more like a chaotic resort. It lacked the survival atmosphere. Mirror's Edge had gorgeous parkour, but without the threat. It looked beautiful there, but there was no pressure. Dying Light, on the other hand, combines both approaches: freedom of movement and a constant sense of danger. Co-op, by the way, holds a special place. The game can be played with up to 4 players, and it completely changes the experience. The horror of solo play is replaced by fun runs across rooftops. Co-op exploration, co-op crafting, rescuing friends from the clutches of zombies. A night in co-op becomes a separate event. Someone is sure to scream when Volatile spots them. Dying Light wasn't just a successful game, it was a true event. Techland demonstrated that it was possible to breathe new life into the zombie genre, which by then was beginning to feel hackneyed. The atmosphere, mechanics, and unique day divided by night balance made the game iconic, and most importantly, it laid the foundation for the future. The success of the first game demonstrated the series' potential, and players were ready to move on. A year after the release of the original game, developers Techland released not just DLC, but essentially a second game using the same engine. Dying Light: The Following is a large-scale story expansion that expands the universe of Harran, changes familiar mechanics, and adds a final point to Kyle Crane's story. Many players perceive The Following not as an add-on, but as a true sequel to the first game, as it radically changes both the atmosphere and the approach to survival. The story picks up after the events of the original game. Crane is found by a survivor who tells him of rumors. Somewhere outside Harran, there's a settlement of people who are immune to the virus. For Crane, who is sick himself and knows he has little time left, this sounds like an opportunity. He ventures beyond the city limits and finds himself in a vast countryside: farms, villages, fields, canals. Communities here appear to be ordinary peasants at first glance, but the deeper Crane is drawn into their world, the clearer it becomes. These people believe in a mysterious force, a cult that promises protection from the infection. The main intrigue of The Following revolves around this cult. Its members claim to have found a way to survive alongside the virus, and they are clearly hiding something. Crane is drawn into their rituals, tasks, and missions, and gradually realizes that there is a dark truth behind it all. The plot becomes more mystical than in the original. While the first game was grounded in the harsh realities of survival, The Following delves into the realm of mystery, faith, and even the occult. The main difference in The Following is its open environment. While in Harran, we ran across rooftops and narrow streets, here the developers created wide open spaces. Fields and forests, villages with small communities, long roads, caves, and underground passages. This is why the developers added a new key mechanic, the buggy. Buggies can be equipped with upgrades from armor and turrets to traps. The vehicle must be repaired and refueled, which creates an additional element of survival. The buggy becomes a second part of the character. Without it, traversing vast distances is practically impossible. The Following feels like a darker and more tragic story. While there were still glimmers of hope in Harran, beyond its borders, we see humanity almost resigned to catastrophe. People live in isolation, clinging to faith and rituals, and even when they have a chance at salvation, they worship it as a miracle rather than try to understand and use it. The ending of the expansion came as a real shock to fans. Without spoilers, it put a decisive end to Crane's story and made the series much more serious. Compared to the original game, The Following is like two different perspectives on the same world, but the two games complement each other beautifully. After the urban hell of Harran, you find yourself in the countryside, where the threat seems different but no less terrifying. After years of anticipation, rumors, and delays, the world finally saw the sequel to the legendary game in February 2022. The developers promised that Dying Light 2 would be the quintessence of everything fans loved about the first game. Parkour, zombie battles, a dynamic world, and brutal nighttime forays. But beyond that, Techland wanted to add what the first game lacked: a developed story, moral choices, and a large, living world. The game was incredibly ambitious. It sparked a lot of controversy. Some considered it a masterpiece, others criticized it for bugs and graphical compromises, but one thing is certain: it left almost no one indifferent. The protagonist is Aiden Caldwell. He's not a soldier or a GRE agent like Crane in the first game, but an ordinary wanderer, traveling between settlements after the global collapse of civilization. His personal goal is to find his sister, Mia, from whom he was separated as a child during a corporation's experiments. Aiden arrives in the city of Villador, the last major stronghold of survivors. This city is the heart of the game. It's bustling with life, with different factions such as the Peacekeepers and the Survivors, each with their own ideals, resources, and methods. The main plot revolves around Aiden's infection, and his power is directly linked to the virus. He constantly balances on the edge. On the one hand, the infection gives him opportunities. On the other, it threatens to turn him into a monster. And this is where Dying Light 2's main feature, the choice system, comes into play. Almost every action Aiden takes affects the fate of the city. Your decisions determine which districts will be controlled by the Peacekeepers or the Survivors, which new buildings will appear, and which storylines will become available. Aiden's story is not only about searching for family, but also about a constant choice: freedom or order, humanity or survival at any cost. In the second game, the night system has become even more important. Many quests and activities are only available at night. Infected buildings can only be cleared in the dark when zombies emerge. This makes night not just a threat, but also an opportunity for progress. Furthermore, in addition to the familiar screamers, thugs, and fast infected, Dying Light 2 introduces new enemy types. Runners are infected capable of mimicking parkour movements. Howlers attract hordes of zombies with their screams. Night Stalkers have become even more dangerous. Surviving at night has become much more difficult. The streets are teeming with infected, and obtaining rare resources requires risking your life. Dying Light 2 differs from the first game in tone. If Harran felt like a localized crisis, Vildor is the remnants of humanity amid the ruins of the world. The city teems with life. Camps, people, music on the rooftops, children playing among the ruins. But at the same time, fear permeates every district. People know that infection is inevitable and live only because they have UV lamps. The parkour in the first game was good, but in the second, the developers raised the bar. There are more movements, acrobatic stunts, and combos. New gadgets have been added, a grappling hook and a paraglider, which make vertical gameplay truly impressive. Parkour is now closely tied to stamina development. The more you develop your character, the longer they can stay on ledges, jump higher, and perform complex stunts. Dying Light 2 was an ambitious and controversial sequel. It's not as pure in concept as the first game, but it's larger scale and richer. For some, it's the best entry in the series due to its depth and choice. For others, it's a step away from the original's perfect balance of horror and parkour. But one thing is certain, it's a step forward, cementing Dying Light as one of the most important zombie franchises in gaming history. After the release of Dying Light 2, the world was eager for a sequel, but no one expected Techland to return to Kyle Crane and craft a story that both harks back to its roots and expands the universe. The Beast isn't just a new project, but a return to its roots. A game that shows how the series could have evolved if the studio had been willing to combine the horror of the first game with the scale of the second. The story begins with Crane being summoned to a new quarantine sector, where the situation has spiraled out of control. The player is immediately immersed in a tense atmosphere. The city is partially destroyed, survivors are few, and the virus has mutated. There's no excessive faction politics like in the second game, but new threats have emerged that force the player to think not only about parkour, but also about combat tactics. The world of the Beast is vast, yet more linear than Villedor. The locations are designed to evoke the sense of dread and danger that characterized Harran. Dark streets, abandoned buildings, and the screams of zombies, all of this evokes why the first game captivated fans. Parkour is once again a core mechanic, but now combined with survival elements and new dynamic weapons. Crane must navigate the environment, destroyed structures, rooftops, and traps. The key feature of the Beast is the balance between classic Dying Light and the new mechanics. Enemies are more intelligent, light and shadow play a greater role, and sound is key. The player's footsteps can attract hordes. The buggies and vast open spaces of the following are almost absent, making the game more compact yet still perilous. The story is told through dialogue, notes, and short cutscenes. Techland has managed to make the story personal. Crane, the protagonist of the first game, is once again faced with moral choices, but this time there are fewer distracting side quests and a greater focus on pure horror and survival. The game's ending leaves a feeling of closure. It connects the events of the first game, the following, and even, to some extent, Dying Light 2, demonstrating that the series' universe is unified, and Crane remains a symbol of humanity and resilience in the face of the apocalypse. Many fans believe that the Beast finally showed what a true Dying Light should be, combining parkour, horror, and a well-thought-out story. Gameplay-wise, the game is closer to the original, but with more modern mechanics, improved parkour animations, smarter enemies, a dynamic environment, and new ways to interact with the world. It's a return to the classics without feeling dated. The music and sound design support the terrifying atmosphere. Quiet footsteps, howling wind, zombie screams, all of this creates a truly tense environment where any wrong move can cost you your life. As you play through all the Dying Light games, it's impossible not to notice how the series has evolved and changed. Each game is a separate chapter in the story of Kyle Crane and Aidan Caldwell. Each installment added something new, while still maintaining the core essence: parkour, zombies, and survival. And finally, I realized one thing. The strongest game in the series is the first Dying Light. It set the tone, it was fresh and bold, there was no overload of factions, no unnecessary scale. It was a pure formula. City, infected, parkour, day and night. Everything worked perfectly and naturally. Yes, the new installments tried to develop the ideas, adding more freedom, a larger world, more choice. But none of them could deliver the same feeling of an open yet terrifying Haran, that terror of the first night, and that thrill of parkour when any move can save your life. The first Dying Light was the most vibrant for me, and it remains a benchmark I want to return to even years later.